Sir, please, you have to let me in. I have an interview. Jamal Thompson, 26, begged the security guard at Sterling Tower as water dripped from his soaked clothes, forming a puddle on the polished marble of the lobby. The white shirt he had bought especially for the interview was stained with mud. His tie was crooked. His shoes were ruined. His hands were shaking not only from the cold, but from sheer desperation. The security guard looked at him with a mixture of pity and suspicion. "Young man, you're a mess. I can't let you go up like that." 20 minutes earlier, Jamal was running down Fifth Avenue in torrential rain that had turned New York into an apocalyptic scene. He had been preparing for this interview for 3 months. He had studied the company. He had practiced his answers. He had spent his last $80 on a suitable shirt and tie. Sterling Technologies was his chance, his only chance to get out of 2 jobs that barely paid for the tiny apartment in the Bronx he shared with his younger brother. Then he saw her. An elderly woman, probably in her 70s, lying on the sidewalk next to a bus stop. The rain beat down on her mercilessly. People rushed past, dodging her as if she were an inconvenient obstacle. No one stopped. No one looked twice. Jamal looked at his watch. 8:47 a.m. interview at 9 o'clock. 15 blocks away. "Please someone, my medicine," the woman whispered, her voice almost inaudible under the sound of the rain. Jamal stopped. Every fiber of his being screamed to keep running. But he remembered his grandmother, who had raised him and his brother after their mother died. His grandmother always said, "Jamal baby, no matter how hard life gets, you never ever walk past someone who needs help." He turned and ran back. "Ma'am, where does it hurt?" Jamal knelt beside her, rain soaking the pants he had just ironed. My heart," she gasped, her hand clutching her chest. "Purse, medicine in the purse." The purse was 5 feet away, its contents scattered across the wet sidewalk. Jamal ran, gathered everything up, found the nitroglycerin bottle. His hands shook as he opened it, not from nervousness, but from desperate urgency. He placed the pill under her tongue. "Breathe, ma'am. Slowly. I'll call an ambulance." "No," she grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "No ambulance. My son, you need to call my son." Her eyes focused on Jamal for the first time, and he saw genuine fear there. "Please. The number is in my phone. Benjamin." Jamal took her broken phone. The screen was cracked but still working. He found the contact Benjamin, son, and dialed. "Mom." A male voice answered on the second ring, tense. "Where are you? I've been looking for you for." "Is your name Benjamin?" Jamal interrupted. "Your mother needs you. She had some kind of heart attack on the corner of 42nd and Madison. I gave her medicine, but she needs to go to the hospital." Silence. "Then, who are you? What do you want?" "I don't want anything, man," Jamal replied, frustration leaking into his voice. "Your mother needs help. Are you coming or not?" 5 minutes. Don't leave her alone." Jamal glanced at his watch as the line went dead. 8:52 a.m. interview in 8 minutes. 15 blocks away. He stayed. The rain continued to fall. The elderly woman held his hand, her breathing gradually stabilizing. "What's your name, son?" "Jamal, ma'am." "Jamal," she repeated, a small smile touching her pale lips. "Pretty name. Do you have family?" "Younger brother. Kevin. He's 16. "And your parents?" Jamal hesitated. "Mom died when I was 12. Cancer. Dad. I never met him." Tears mingled with rain in her eyes. "I'm sorry, dear." A black BMW skidded to a stop on the street. A man of about 45 jumped out, his $3,000 suit instantly soaked. He ran to the elderly woman, his face showing panic that Jamal recognized, the same fear he had felt when his grandmother had a stroke 3 years ago. "Mom. What happened? Why did you leave the house alone?" Benjamin knelt beside her, checking her pulse and eyes. "I needed some fresh air," she replied weakly. "I got dizzy. I fell." Benjamin finally looked at Jamal. "Did you call?" "Yes. And I gave her medicine." "Are you a doctor?" "No. But I took care of my grandmother with heart problems for years. I recognize the symptoms." Benjamin studied Jamal for a long moment, his soaked clothes, ruined shoes, exhausted expression. "Thank you," he said finally, his voice sincere. "Really. Thank you for staying." "Of course." Jamal helped the woman up carefully. Benjamin guided her to the car, settling her into the back seat with a gentleness that contrasted with his intimidating appearance. "Wait," the woman called as Benjamin closed the door. "Jamal, do you have somewhere to go? You were rushing somewhere." Jamal glanced at his watch. 9:04 a.m. The interview had started 4 minutes ago. "I did," he said softly, the weight of lost opportunity crushing his chest. "But it's okay. You're safe now." "What was it?" Benjamin asked, car keys in hand. "A job interview. Sterling Technologies. 9 a.m. Jamal laughed bitterly. "I prepared for 3 months. But it doesn't matter. You needed help." Benjamin and his mother exchanged a look that Jamal couldn't decipher. Something passed between them, some silent understanding. "Get in the car," Benjamin said suddenly. "What?" "I'll take you. The hospital is near Sterling Tower. I can drop you off there." "Man, thanks, but I already missed the interview." "Jamal," the woman interrupted, her voice stronger now, "take the ride. Please. For me." Something in her tone made Jamal agree. He got into the front seat, water dripping onto the expensive leather. Benjamin drove in silence, focused on his mother in the rearview mirror. At the hospital, medical staff were already waiting. Apparently Benjamin had called ahead. Nurses quickly took the woman away. Before disappearing through double doors, she held Jamal's hand one last time. "You have a good heart, Jamal Thompson. Don't lose it." "How do you know my full name?" Jamal asked, confused. She just smiled. "Benjamin will take care of you." The doors closed. Benjamin turned to Jamal. "Let's go. I'll take you to Sterling." They drove in silence for 5 minutes before Benjamin spoke. "My mother. She's had heart problems for years. Too stubborn to admit she needs full-time help. Today she left the nursing home when the caregiver wasn't looking. I'd been looking for her for 2 hours." "I'm sorry," Jamal said sincerely. "If you hadn't stopped," Benjamin didn't finish his sentence. He didn't need to. He stopped in front of Sterling Tower. 9:23 a.m. Jamal looked up at the 40-story building where his future had died 23 minutes ago. "Thanks for the ride," he said, opening the door. "Jamal." Benjamin's voice stopped him. "What position did you apply for?" "Junior Data Analyst. Technology Department." Benjamin nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Good luck." Jamal entered the lobby, still drenched, still devastated. Security, the same guard as before, shook his head. "They've already filled the position, son. The candidate arrived on time." "Of course they did." Jamal nodded, his throat too tight to speak. He turned to leave when his phone vibrated. Message from an unknown number: "Go up to the 38th floor. Reception will be waiting for you. B." If you're following the story about choosing to do the right thing even when it costs everything, don't forget to subscribe, because what Jamal is about to discover on the 38th floor will completely change his understanding of sacrifice, destiny, and the true meaning of character. The elevator rose in a silence that allowed Jamal to hear his own heart beating. His hands were still shaking. He didn't know if it was from the cold or adrenaline. His wet clothes clung uncomfortably to him. He knew how he looked, desperate, disheveled, exactly the kind of person who didn't belong in a building like this. The doors opened on the 38th floor to reveal a reception area that looked more expensive than everything Jamal owned combined. Italian marble, crystal chandeliers, panoramic views of Manhattan through floor-to-ceiling windows. The receptionist, a white woman in her 30s, perfectly coiffed blonde hair, Chanel suit, looked up. Her expression shifted from professional to shocked in half a second. "Can I help you?" Her voice dripped with doubt. "Jamal Thompson. I got a message to come to the 38th floor." She typed something into the computer, frowning. "I don't see your name in." The phone on her desk rang. She answered it, listened for a moment, her eyes widening slightly. "Yes, sir. Immediately." She hung up and forced a tense smile. "Someone will come get you." Jamal stood uncomfortably, water still dripping onto the Persian rug. Other employees passed by, casting curious and judgmental glances. He heard whispers. I can't believe security let him up like that. Probably a delivery guy or something. Completely inappropriate. Shame burned Jamal's neck. His whole life had been like this. Being judged. Being underestimated. Being treated as if he didn't belong simply because he existed in spaces where people like him were rarely welcome. The double doors opened. An executive assistant, a 40-year-old Asian woman with an indecipherable expression, beckoned him. Mr. Thompson? This way, please. She guided him down a quiet hallway to a mahogany door with a gold plaque, Benjamin Sterling, CEO. Jamal's stomach turned. CEO. Benjamin wasn't just some random son. He was Benjamin Sterling. The Benjamin Sterling who had founded Sterling Technologies at age 25 and turned it into a $2 billion giant in 2 decades. And Jamal had treated him like a guy on the phone. Come in, the assistant said, opening the door. The office was exactly what Jamal expected. Huge, immaculate, a display of success in every inch. Benjamin was standing near the window, phone to his ear, gesturing as he spoke. I don't care what the board thinks. Make it happen by Friday. He hung up and turned around. For the first time, Jamal saw him in proper light. Perfectly cut gray hair, firm jaw, eyes that had seen and conquered corporate worlds. But also fatigue around those eyes. Concern. Jamal. Benjamin gestured to a chair. Sit down. Sir, I can explain how I know exactly how you got there. You saved my mother's life. Benjamin sat down behind his massive desk. The hospital called. She's stable. The doctor said if you had been 5 minutes later without the medicine. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Jamal nodded, his throat tight. You missed your interview because of her, Benjamin continued. A job that, from what I understand, meant a lot to you. It meant everything, Jamal admitted quietly. But Mrs. Sterling needed help. I couldn't just. Most people could, Benjamin interrupted. And did. My assistant reviewed street security footage. 43 people walked past my mother lying on that sidewalk in 6 minutes. 43. You were the only one who stopped. A heavy silence fell between them. Benjamin opened a drawer and pulled out a file. Jamal recognized it. It was his application. The resume he had spent weeks perfecting. Jamal Marcus Thompson, age 26, Benjamin read aloud. Bachelor's degree in data analysis from CUNY. GPA 3.8. Worked part-time as a data analyst at a small startup during college. Currently works 2 jobs, supermarket cashier by day, food delivery driver by night. He looked up. Why 2 jobs? Younger brother. Kevin is 16. Someone has to pay for rent, food, his school. Your parents. Mom died of cancer when I was 12. Dad was never around. Who raised you? Grandmother. Ella Thompson. Jamal swallowed hard. She had a stroke 3 years ago. Had to go into a nursing home. Medicaid covers most of it, but he stopped, realizing he was sharing too much. But not all of it, Benjamin finished. And you pay the difference. It wasn't a question. Jamal just nodded. Benjamin closed the file, his fingers tapping thoughtfully on the cover. You know what I see when I look at this? I see someone who works 2 jobs while maintaining excellent grades. I see someone who takes care of their younger brother and sick grandmother. I see someone who sacrifices their own future for their family. He paused. And this morning, I saw someone who sacrificed their dream job opportunity for a complete stranger. She wasn't a stranger, Jamal said softly. She was someone in danger. Something changed in Benjamin's expression. Respect, perhaps. Or recognition. My mother, she grew up poor, Benjamin said unexpectedly. Daughter of immigrants. Her father worked in a factory for 40 years. She always taught me that money doesn't measure character. That true success is about how you treat people when no one is watching. He leaned back in his chair. I spent my life building an empire. Hiring smarter, faster, more ambitious people. But you know what I discovered? Intelligence can be taught. Skills can be trained. Character, he shook his head. Character is something you either have or you don't. Jamal didn't know what to say. He waited. The junior analyst position has been filled, Benjamin said, and Jamal's heart sank. The candidate arrived on time. Impressive credentials. Columbia MBA. 3 years of experience at Goldman Sachs. Benjamin paused. He also treated the receptionist like trash when she accidentally spilled coffee on his tie during the interview. Jamal's eyes widened. You know how I know? Benjamin continued. Because the receptionist, Jessica, called me personally. She's been working here for 8 years. She's never complained about a candidate before. She said the man called her an incompetent idiot and demanded she pay for $200 worth of dry cleaning for his tie. Benjamin smiled bitterly. So I have a choice. Hire a man with perfect credentials and questionable character. Or. He left the sentence hanging in the air. Sir, Jamal said carefully, I appreciate what you're doing, but I can't accept a job out of charity. It wouldn't be fair to the other candidates who. Charity. Benjamin laughed, a genuine, surprised sound. Jamal, I'm not offering charity. I'm offering opportunity. The difference is crucial. He leaned forward. You have skills. Your portfolio of data analysis projects that you included in your application? I asked the head of the technology department to review it. He said the work is remarkably sophisticated for a self-taught person. He said you clearly understand not only the mechanics of analysis, but the narrative behind the data. Jamal felt hope igniting, dangerous, fragile. But I'll be honest, Benjamin continued, his voice growing more serious. I can't just give you a position I've already promised to another candidate. It would be unfair to him, regardless of his behavior. And it would send the wrong message to the company. He paused. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a new position. Executive Assistant for Analysis. You report directly to me. You'll work on special projects, data analysis that I need but don't have time to properly supervise through normal channels. Sir, Starting salary $75,000. Full health insurance for you and your brother. Flexible hours because I know you still need to take care of your family. Benjamin took out a business card, scribbled something on the back, and handed it to Jamal. Contact HR tomorrow. Ask for Monica. She'll guide you. Jamal looked at the card, then at Benjamin, then at the card again. $75,000. That was more than his 2 jobs combined. That was a chance to give Kevin a proper life. To pay for a better nursing home for his grandmother. To finally breathe. Why? The question came out almost as a whisper. Why do this? Benjamin was silent for a long moment. Then he stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the city below. 20 years ago, I was like you. Poor, desperate, working 3 jobs to pay for community college. I had an interview for an internship at a tech startup. It was going to change my life. He turned around. On the way, I saw a fire in an apartment building. A small child was screaming from a second-floor window. The firefighters hadn't arrived yet. I didn't think. I just went in. Jamal held his breath. I saved the child. I suffered second-degree burns on my arm. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing scars Jamal hadn't noticed before. I lost the internship. The hospital told me later that if I had waited for the fire department, the child would have died from smoke inhalation. What happened next? The child's father sought me out. He was a venture capitalist. When he found out that I lost my internship to save his son, Benjamin smiled. He became my first investor when I launched Sterling Technologies 5 years later. He invested $500,000 when no one else believed in me. Understanding lit up Jamal's face. So you're paying it forward. No, Benjamin corrected. I'm recognizing something valuable when I see it. You made an impossible decision this morning. You chose a person over an opportunity. Humanity over ambition. That can't be taught. He extended his hand. So, Jamal Thompson, do you accept? Jamal looked at the outstretched hand. Part of him still couldn't believe it was real. But Benjamin's hand was firm, his gaze sincere, and the business card in Jamal's pocket seemed to weigh more than anything else. He shook his hand. "I accept." Benjamin smiled, genuinely and warmly. "Welcome to Sterling Technologies. Now your first task, go home, take a hot shower, rest. We'll start on Monday." Jamal was almost at the door when Benjamin called him back. "Oh, and Jamal? When you start on Monday, I want you to work on a specific project with me. Analysis of the company's hiring practices. I'm curious to understand why candidates like you, with exceptional character but non-traditional credentials, rarely make it through our initial filters." "With pleasure, sir." In the elevator going down, Jamal finally let his emotions flow. Tears mixed with rainwater still drying on his face. He called Kevin. "Bro, I did it," his voice broke. "I got the job." His brother's cry of joy came through the line. "Really? Really? Man, I knew it. I knew you could do it." "There's more. The salary it's enough so you don't have to work part-time anymore. You can focus on school. Maybe even think about college." Silence. Then Kevin started to cry. "Jay, that means..." "It means we're going to be okay, Kev. We're finally going to be okay." When Jamal left the building, the rain had finally stopped. The afternoon was still gray, but there were cracks in the clouds where the sun was struggling to break through. He pulled out his phone to call an Uber. He could afford it now, when he saw a notification. Email from the hospital, Ella Thompson, status update. His hands trembled as he opened the message. "Please, not now. Not when things were finally getting better. Mrs. Thompson is resting comfortably after a minor episode of high blood pressure. She is stable and requesting family visits when convenient." Jamal exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He took the subway to the nursing home. He wasn't ready to spend money on Uber when his old habit of saving was so deeply ingrained. In her room, his grandmother slept. Jamal sat in the worn chair next to the bed, holding her frail hand. She was so small now, so different from the strong woman who had raised 2 boys on her own. "I did it, Grandma," he whispered. "I got the job. $75,000 a year. With benefits. Kevin will be able to focus on school. And I'll be able to bring you to a better place than this." Tears fell freely now. "You always told me to do the right thing, even when it's hard. Today it cost everything. But it worked. Somehow it worked." Her eyes opened, confused at first, then focusing on him. A weak smile touched her lips. "My beautiful boy. I always knew you'd be special." "I'm not special, Grandma. I just tried to help someone." "Exactly," she whispered. "That's what makes you special." Monday arrived too quickly and too slowly at the same time. Jamal woke up at 5 a.m., unable to sleep any longer. He spent an hour choosing an outfit. The cheap $150 suit he bought on sale was the best he had, but it looked pathetic compared to what he'd seen at Sterling Tower. Kevin knocked on the bedroom door. "Jay, you're going to rock this. Stop worrying. What if it's a mistake?" Jamal adjusted his tie for the 10th time. "What if Benjamin changes his mind? What if I'm not good enough?" "Then you learn and get better." Kevin put his hand on his brother's shoulder. "Bro, you worked 2 jobs for 3 years to keep me in school. You took care of Grandma when the doctor said she wouldn't survive. You literally saved someone's life in the rain. If you can do all that, you can do anything." The first week was a whirlwind. Monica from HR spent 2 whole days just getting Jamal to sign paperwork, employment contract, benefits, confidentiality. His office was small but had a window, a luxury he hadn't expected. His computer was the latest model, one that would take him years to pay for on his own. But what really surprised Jamal were the people. The technology department had 47 employees. Of those, only 6 were black. 3 were women. And of the 6, only 1 held a senior position. Jamal noticed a pattern in meetings. White voices were heard first, opinions weighed more seriously, ideas credited more quickly. No one was openly hostile. That would have been easier to identify. Instead, it was 1,000 little cuts. Jokes that stopped when he entered the room. Assumptions that he was in HR or support, not analytics. Genuine surprise when he demonstrated technical competence. Wow, you really know your stuff, a white colleague said after Jamal presented a marketing data analysis. The tone was one of condescending admiration, as if a dog had learned a trick. Jamal smiled politely and swallowed his frustration. In the fourth week, Benjamin called him into his office. Ready for that special project? Hiring analysis? Yes, sir. Good. Benjamin handed him 3 years of HR data. I want to know why our retention rate for minority employees is 40% lower than overall, and why 73% of leadership positions are held by white men despite a more diverse talent pipeline. Jamal spent 2 weeks immersed in numbers. The more he dug, the more disturbing patterns emerged. It wasn't a single smoking gun, it was a system built on 1,000 small decisions. Candidates with ethnic names received 23% fewer callbacks than identical candidates with traditional names. Women were promoted on average 1.7 years slower than men with the same performance. Black employees received performance reviews that were 15% lower, with language focusing on potential, while their white colleagues were described in terms of achievements. And interviews. God, the interviews. Jamal reviewed recordings, a standard Sterling process with candidate consent. He watched as white interviewers asked different questions to candidates of color. Cultural fit became code for looks like us. Strong communication meant sounds like us. Worst of all, he discovered that the candidate who got the original job, the one from Columbia MBA, had an uncle on the board. The connection had never been disclosed. He was hired not on merit, but through networking. Jamal compiled everything into an 89-slide presentation. Cold, hard, irrefutable data. He showed it to Benjamin in a private meeting. Benjamin was silent for a full 10 minutes afterward, just flipping through the slides. Finally, how much of this do you think is intentional? Honestly? Maybe 10%. Jamal chose his words carefully. Most of it isn't conscious hatred. It's institutionalized, unconscious bias. People hiring those they know, promoting those they understand, rewarding those who fit the image of success they carry in their heads. And how do we fix it? That's the million-dollar question, sir. Benjamin leaned back. Let me tell you something. When I launched Sterling, I swore I would build a different company. A fair one. Based on merit. But this data, he gestured to the screen. This data says I failed. Sir, with all due respect, this data says the system failed. Not you personally. I'm the CEO. The system is my responsibility. Benjamin closed his laptop. I want you to present this to the leadership committee next Thursday. The entire executive team. Jamal's stomach turned. Sir, this is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. Good. Comfort is the enemy of change. Benjamin looked him straight in the eye. Do you have the courage to do this? Jamal thought of Kevin fighting at school because he was one of the only black kids in the advanced program. He thought of his grandmother telling stories of not being able to vote until she was 30. He thought of every time he had been followed in a store, stopped by a police officer, presumed to be a threat just because he existed in a black body. I do, he said. Thursday arrived. The conference room was packed, 15 executives, all but 2 of whom were white men over 45. Jamal felt the weight of skeptical glances as he connected his laptop to the projector. He began with general industry statistics, context to show that Sterling was not an exception, but part of a larger pattern. Then he dove into internal data. The first slide highlighting pay disparity provoked murmurs. The second showing promotion rates brought whispered denials. When he got to the cultural fit analysis, the HR director interrupted. That's flawed methodology, he said sharply. You can't reduce hiring to numbers. Numbers don't lie, sir, Jamal replied calmly. And those numbers show that people with the same level of qualifications have drastically different experiences based on factors that shouldn't matter. Are you accusing this company of racism? The CFO asked, his voice dangerously low. I'm presenting data that suggests systemic bias. If that word bothers you, maybe we should explore why. A tense silence fell. Benjamin, sitting at the back of the room, watched with a neutral expression. Jamal continued through the remaining slides, his voice steady despite his sweaty palms. When he finished, there was no applause. Just uncomfortable silence. Any questions? Jamal asked. Yes, said the marketing director, one of two women in the room. What is your recommendation? Jamal took a deep breath. 3 things. First, mandatory unconscious bias training for all leadership, not an annual checkbox but ongoing development. Second, review of all hiring and promotion processes by an external consultant specializing in equity. Third, he paused, knowing that the next point would be more controversial. Third, concrete goals for diversity in leadership. Not quotas, but accountability. That's, the HR director began. Necessary, Benjamin interrupted, standing up. Jamal, thank you for the presentation. Leadership team, let's schedule follow-up sessions. His tone left no room for debate. After the room emptied, Benjamin motioned for Jamal to stay. You knew this would cause discomfort. Yes, sir. You presented it anyway. Data doesn't change based on who is uncomfortable with it. Benjamin smiled, the first genuine smile Jamal had seen since the presentation began. My mother is going to love you. By the way, she wants to have dinner with you and Kevin this Saturday. Our house. Nothing formal, just a proper thank you for what you've done. Sir, this isn't. She insists. And believe me, when Helen Sterling insists, even CEOs obey. Saturday night, Jamal and Kevin stood in front of the mansion on the Upper East Side, mouths agape. Jay, Kevin whispered, this is like a mansion from a movie. A butler, a real butler, opened the door. Helen was waiting in the foyer, looking dramatically different from the fragile woman Jamal had carried in the rain. Elegant dress, neat hair, warm smile. Jamal. And you must be Kevin. She hugged them both like old family. Come in, dinner is almost ready. The house was exactly as opulent as Jamal had expected, art that was probably worth more than he would ever earn in his lifetime, furniture that belonged in museums. But Helen treated them not as guests, but as loved ones. During dinner, prepared by a private chef but served family style, Helen told stories. How she and her late husband started with nothing. How Benjamin built his company from scratch despite everyone telling him to give up. Success doesn't make you better than others, she said, looking directly at Kevin. It just gives you more responsibility to help. Afterward, Benjamin took Jamal to his private office. The presentation caused waves. Good waves, mostly. But, he hesitated. There will be resistance. People who think you're causing trouble. I understand. I want you to know, I support you. Completely. Benjamin handed him an envelope. Bonus for exceptional work. And a promotion. You are no longer an assistant. You are Director of Strategic Analysis. Reporting directly to me. Jamal opened the envelope. A check for $25,000. Sir, this is too much. It's exactly enough. And Jamal? Real change is coming. Thanks to you. 3 months after the presentation, Sterling Technologies announced a new initiative, Equity in Action Program. A $15 million investment in diverse recruitment, bias training, and a complete overhaul of HR practices. The Wall Street Journal published an article praising the company as a leader in corporate responsibility. Jamal should have been celebrating. Instead, he was sitting in his office at 11 p.m., analyzing data that didn't make sense. The hiring numbers looked too good. Suddenly, 40% of new hires were people of color. But when Jamal dug deeper, he discovered something disturbing. The turnover rate for those same hires was 67% in the first 6 months. They were hiring diversity. But they weren't retaining it. Jamal began informal interviews, coffee conversations with new minority employees. A pattern quickly emerged. They all reported the same experiences: exclusion from important meetings, ideas ignored or credited to others, constant microaggressions, feeling like they were tokens hired for statistics. A 28-year-old black woman, a brilliant engineer named Tasha, was particularly candid. They hired me to look good. But when I suggested changes to legacy code, I was told that I didn't understand the company culture yet. The code had obvious bugs that I could fix. But Brian, a white guy who started the same day as me, makes the same suggestion a week later and is called an innovative thinker. Jamal documented everything meticulously. 42 interviews. Consistent patterns. And then he discovered something that made his blood run cold. The HR director, the same man who had challenged Jamal's presentation, was actively sabotaging diversity initiatives. Internal emails obtained by Tasha, who had administrative access, showed communications with managers: hire the necessary numbers but keep them on low-visibility projects. Performance reviews should be fair, but realistic about cultural fit. Code 4, hire for statistics, but don't promote. Comply with the letter of the law, but not the spirit. Jamal brought evidence to Benjamin in an emergency meeting. The executive assistant who normally filtered Benjamin's schedule saw the urgency in Jamal's face and let him in immediately. "You need to see this," Jamal said without preamble, opening his laptop. Benjamin read emails, interviews, data. His face went through a range of emotions: shock, anger, deep disappointment. "Richard did this," Benjamin said quietly, referring to the HR director. "The man I personally hired 12 years ago." It wasn't just him. Jamal pulled up the next set of data. 7 middle managers followed his lead. They created a system within the system, appearing to comply with diversity initiatives while ensuring that nothing really changed. Names. Jamal handed him the list. Benjamin recognized each one: company veterans, people he had trusted to build the culture. "Emergency board meeting," Benjamin said, picking up the phone. Now. 2 hours later, the conference room was full again. But this time, the atmosphere was completely different. Benjamin projected the evidence Jamal had compiled onto the main screen: emails, statistics, anonymous employee testimonials. "This," Benjamin said, his voice as sharp as ice, "is a betrayal of everything this company should stand for." Richard tried to defend himself. "Benjamin, this is out of context. Those emails were about managing realistic expectations." "Realistic expectations?" Benjamin interrupted. "Or preserving the status quo because it threatens your power? That's absurd. I implemented every initiative you asked for." "You implemented the letter, not the spirit," Jamal said calmly. "You hired numbers to look good on reports. But you created such a toxic environment that 67% of those people leave within 6 months. That's not progress. It's theater. Who do you think you are?" Richard turned to Jamal, his mask of professionalism finally slipping. "You've been here for 5 minutes. You don't understand how a real company works. You can't just change decades of organizational culture because it makes you feel good." "Richard." Benjamin's voice was dangerously low. "Stop talking. Now." Silence fell on the room like lead. Benjamin stood up, resting his hands on the table. "When I founded Sterling Technologies, I made a promise. I would build a company based on merit, not privilege. On talent, not connections. And for years, I believed I was keeping that promise. But Jamal showed me the truth." He gestured to the screen. "This evidence shows that while I was talking about values, you were building a system to subvert those values." "Benjamin," one of the other managers tried. "I'm not done." Benjamin walked around the table. 7 of you directly violated company policy and, more importantly, betrayed the trust of employees we hired. Employees who came here believing in the promise of fair opportunity." He stopped behind Richard's chair. "Effective immediately, Richard, you're fired. Cause: 0 severance." Richard turned pale. "You can't." "I can. And I will." Benjamin looked at the other 6 managers. "You have a choice. Resign today with 6-month severance and neutral references. Or be fired for cause and explain in future interviews why you were removed for creating a hostile work environment." 5 managers turned pale. One, a 50-year-old man named David, stood up. "Benjamin, I've worked here for 15 years. And for 15 years, I apparently learned nothing about the values this company should represent." Benjamin turned to the CFO. "Maureen, work with legal. I want resignation packages prepared by the end of the day." After the room emptied, except for Jamal and Benjamin, the CEO sank into his chair, looking suddenly exhausted. "I lost 7 senior leaders today," he said, "including the HR director. This is going to create operational chaos." "But you sent a message," Jamal replied. "A real message, not just words." "I hope you're right." Benjamin looked up. Because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to get criticism. The board will question me. Investors will pressure me. Some will say I went too far. Others will say I didn't go far enough. He paused. Have you prepared for the backlash? I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about Tasha, about 41 other employees who trusted me enough to share their stories. If this leaks, they could face retaliation. They won't, Benjamin interrupted. Because I'm going to make a public announcement. Company-wide. Explaining exactly what happened and why. Complete transparency. He stood up. And I'm going to create a new position, Chief Diversity Officer. Reporting directly to me. $5 million budget. Full authority over hiring, promotions, and culture. He held out his hand. Interested? Jamal blinked. Sir, I don't have experience in. You have something better than experience. You have integrity. And the courage to speak truth to power even when it's difficult. Benjamin kept his hand outstretched. So, do you accept? Jamal thought of Tasha and 41 others. He thought of Kevin, who deserved to work in a world where talent mattered more than skin color. He thought of his grandmother always saying, "Be the change you want to see." He shook Benjamin's hand. I accept. 3 days later, Sterling Technologies made a public announcement. Benjamin's email to all 2,847 employees spared no details. He explained what had happened, who had been removed, and why. He apologized for failing to detect the problem earlier. And he announced a renewed commitment to real change. The reaction was mixed. Some employees applauded. Others questioned whether the dismissals were fair. The Wall Street Journal published an article questioning whether social justice should trump operational expertise. Fox News invited Richard for an interview where he portrayed himself as a victim of cancel culture. But then something unexpected happened. Tasha posted her experience on LinkedIn. The post went viral, 2 million views in 48 hours. Other employees began sharing their stories. External candidates, brilliant minority talents who would normally avoid traditional corporations, began applying to Sterling. You actually did something, one candidate said during an interview. You didn't just talk. You took action. That matters. In 6 months, Sterling saw a 340% increase in applications from diverse candidates. The retention rate for new minority hires rose to 89%. And even more surprising, the company's overall productivity increased by 23%. Stellament, diverse teams were more innovative, more creative, more profitable. During a board meeting, a skeptical investor admitted, I was wrong. I thought diversity was a cost. But the data shows it's a competitive advantage. Benjamin smiled at Jamal across the room. Data doesn't lie. That night, Jamal visited his grandmother. She was stronger now. New medication that Jamal's health insurance covered was working miracles. My boy is in the papers, she said, showing him the iPad Kevin had bought for her. Read about yourself in the Times. I didn't do anything special, Grandma. You did exactly what I taught you, she corrected. You saw injustice. You documented it. You spoke up. Even when it was scary. Even when you risked everything. She held his hand. You think saving that woman in the rain changed your life. But the truth is, the kind of person you've always been, someone who stops to help, was already changing worlds around you. It just needed a bigger stage. 18 months after that rainy morning, Jamal Thompson, now 28, stood on the main stage of the Tech Forward conference in San Francisco, looking out at an audience of 3,000 technology leaders. The title of his talk was projected on a massive screen behind him, From Despair to Direction, How an Act of Kindness Revealed Systemic Failure. Let me tell you about the worst and best day of my life, Jamal began. They happened on the same day. He told the whole story. Rain. Helen falling. Impossible choice. Missed interview. And everything that came after. The audience was completely silent, every person hanging on every word. Here's what I learned, Jamal said, pacing the stage. I didn't save Helen Sterling because I expected a reward. I did it because it was the right thing to do. But that moment revealed something bigger than my personal luck. It revealed a broken system that rewards connections over character, privilege over potential, appearances over ability. He clicked to the next slide showing statistics. 18 months ago, Sterling Technologies had 4% black leadership. Today, 23%. Women in leadership, from 12% to 41%. And our revenue? It grew 34% in the same period. Applause erupted. Jamal waited for the silence to return. But I'm not here for applause. I'm here for challenge. He looked directly at the audience. How many of you would have stopped that morning? How many would choose a stranger over a life opportunity? Visible discomfort rippled through the room. Honesty is hard, Jamal continued. Most of us want to believe we would do the right thing. But the statistics I shared at the beginning of this talk, 43 people passed Helen by before I did, those are real people. Many of them probably had important places to be too. But they chose differently. He paused, letting the point sink in. And here's the harder truth. Even companies that claim to value diversity, equity, and inclusion, most treat it as a public relations exercise. They hire numbers. They check boxes. They take photos for their website. But the real power structures? They remain unchanged. So how do we change? Someone in the audience asked. 3 things, Jamal replied. First, real accountability. Not aspirational goals. Real consequences for leaders who create toxic environments. Benjamin Sterling fired 7 senior managers, including a 12-year HR director. It was difficult. It was controversial. It was necessary. Second, listen to people who experience inequality. I interviewed 42 employees before presenting evidence. Their stories weren't data, they were lives. They were careers destroyed by bias. They were talents wasted because someone decided they didn't fit culturally. Third, and most importantly, understand that diversity isn't charity. It's a strategic advantage. Diverse teams are 87% better at making decisions. They are 70% more likely to capture new markets. It's not about being good. It's about being smart. After the lecture, a line of people waited to talk to Jamal. CEOs wanted advice. Young professionals sought mentoring. Journalists wanted interviews. But the person Jamal most wanted to see was waiting backstage. Helen Sterling, now 72, used a cane but her smile was radiant. Next to her were Benjamin and a woman Jamal didn't know, elegant, 40 years old, with a determined expression. Jamal. Helen hugged him warmly. You are magnificent. I completely agree, the unknown woman said, extending her hand. I'm Rebecca Chen, CEO of Horizon Ventures, a venture capital fund focused on startups led by underrepresented founders. Your talk gave me an idea. She exchanged glances with Benjamin. We're launching a new initiative, $100 million for companies focused on equitable technology. We want you on the advisory board. Jamal blinked. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Benjamin encouraged him. Helen and I have already invested $5 million. This is bigger than Sterling. It's about transforming an entire industry. 3 months later, the Equity in Technology Initiative was officially launched. Jamal divided his time between Sterling and the new organization. Kevin, now 18, was going to Columbia, full scholarship after writing an essay about his brother who sacrificed everything for his family. You realize I'm only here because of you, right? Kevin said as he packed for college. You're here because of you, Jamal corrected. Your grades. Your hard work. Grades I got because I didn't have to work part-time. Hard work I was able to focus on because you carried the weight for both of us. Kevin hugged his brother. I won't forget that, Jay. I promise. At the nursing home, Grandma Ella was in her favorite rocking chair, a new one, a gift from Jamal. But she was no longer in a Medicaid facility. Jamal had transferred her to a private facility with gardens, activities, personalized care. It cost $8,000 a month. He was happy to pay. I brought someone to meet you, Jamal said, entering with Helen. The 2 women looked at each other, one black, raised in poverty in the South during segregation, the other white, the daughter of immigrants who built a life from nothing. Different generations. Different experiences. but instant recognition passed between them. "You raised a good man," Helen said. "You raised one too," Ella replied, looking at Benjamin's photo on the table. They talked for hours, about raising children alone, about sacrifices, about believing that the world can be better even when evidence suggests otherwise. As they were leaving, Ella held Jamal's hand. "You know what makes me most proud? It's not money. It's not titles. It's that you see someone lying in the rain and you still stop. Success hasn't changed that." 2 years after that rainy morning, Sterling Technologies was named Best Place to Work by Fortune magazine. Retention rate was 94%. Applications increased 400%. Profits reached an all-time high. During the celebration party, a reporter asked Benjamin, "What do you attribute your success to?" "Easy," Benjamin replied, spotting Jamal across the room. "The moment I stopped hiring credentials and started hiring character." But the story that really captured the national imagination happened 6 months later. Richard, the former HR director who had been fired, published a book, Cancelled: How Woke Culture Destroyed My Career. He appeared on conservative media outlets, portraying himself as a martyr. Jamal received hundreds of messages pressuring him to respond, to defend himself, to strike back. He did something different. He wrote an article on Medium titled, "Why I Won't Debate My Right to Exist Equally." He didn't mention Richard by name. He simply explained, with data and empathy, why diversity mattered. Why equity wasn't a threat. Why justice wasn't a zero-sum game. The article was read 15 million times. And something remarkable happened. People started sharing their own stories. Not with anger, but with humanity. Richard disappeared from the news cycle 2 weeks later. His book sold poorly. Meanwhile, the movement Jamal helped spark continued to grow. 3 years after that rainy morning, Jamal was at the same bus stop where he had met Helen. Rain was falling again, not torrential but steady. He saw an elderly woman struggling with a broken umbrella, heavy grocery bags in her hands. Without hesitation, Jamal crossed the street. "Let me help you with that." She looked up, surprised. "Oh, you don't have to." "I know. But I want to." He took the bags and held the umbrella over her. "Where are you going?" "Just 3 blocks. My apartment." She studied his face. "You look familiar." Jamal smiled. "Maybe you've seen me on the news. But today I'm just someone helping a neighbor carry groceries in the rain." They walked together in comfortable silence. When they reached her building, the woman turned. "Thank you, dear. The world needs more people like you." "Actually," Jamal said gently, "the world needs more people choosing to stop. Choosing to help. It's not about being special. It's about deciding that other people's humanity matters as much as our own plans." That night, Kevin called from Colombia. "Jay, guess what? I got an internship at the UN, Human Rights Office." "Kev, that's amazing. Inspired by you, bro. You showed that one person can make a difference. Now it's my turn." After hanging up, Jamal stood at the window looking out over the city. His phone vibrated, a message from Benjamin, board approved. Helen Sterling Scholarship Program officially launched. $50 million for first-generation students interested in technology. First scholarship goes to Kevin. Jamal felt tears welling up, not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude. It all started with a choice. Not a calculated or strategic choice. Just a decision to see someone in need and not turn away. If this story touched you, if it made you think about times when you passed by someone who needed help, or if it inspired you to stop next time, subscribe to the channel. Because stories like Jamal's remind us that we change the world not through grand gestures, but through 1,000 small choices. Choices to see dignity in others. Choices to prioritize humanity over convenience. Choices to be exactly who we were taught to be when no one is watching. Jamal didn't save Helen Sterling that rainy morning hoping to become Chief Diversity Officer or a national speaker or an agent of change. He stopped because it was the right thing to do. And that single decision, choosing people over opportunity, character over career, didn't just change his life. It changed the entire system. Because true leadership isn't about the power you wield. It's about the choices you make when you think no one is watching. And the world is always watching. Always. Richard learned this too late. He lost everything trying to protect a system that benefited him. Now he works in an obscure consulting firm earning a fraction of his previous salary, irrelevant in the industry he left behind. Jamal learned early. He gained everything by choosing humanity. And the difference between them was not talent, intelligence, or even circumstance. It was choice. It always has been. It always will be. When the rain falls and you see someone struggling, you have a decision to make. Do you pass by? Or do you stop? Jamal stopped. And stopping changed everything.